What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time on a Sunday afternoon for me. Could be morning for you. I am Britt Devine, here with the weekend man, Mr. STL Cards. Justin, it's been a few weeks. I had a very, very, very busy May. I'm now back in the swing of things here. Your Cardinals are suddenly good, Justin. What's going on?
Yeah, so unfortunately, you were. I figured that was probably why you were eschewing us for a while. You may recall that I believe the last time we were on the air together, the Cardinals were on a pretty long losing streak, and they had a doubleheader against the Mets on May the 4th day. And one Britt Devine was talking about, it's unfortunate we couldn't parlay the Mets to win both games, and I was kind of even joining in with berating my Cardinals at that point. But just for a refresher, the Cardinals are 19-6 since then. So maybe we just need to keep you away, Britt. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's been a bit of a surprise to see them playing really well. And they've got a tough test against deGrom today. But at least they're watchable right now and kind of surpassing everyone's expectations. So maybe the key is just to have no expectations. Then you can't be let down. You can only be pleasantly surprised. So we're at least in that camp right now.
The Baltimore fans need to start doing that with their team, and maybe Arizona as well, because they are good. Did you just copy me yesterday on Scores and Odds? You saw me on there and you jump into because it was such a good spot.
I figured, Britt must be onto something. He's been running pretty good. But no, I saw that, and I actually didn't see that you had bet it until I went and looked after. But when Washington's lineup came out yesterday, I saw, they got 9 lefties in there against Brandon Pfaadt, and they've been playing pretty good. They know what they're doing. And then they scored 10 runs in the top of the first inning, and it was probably about as sweat-free as it could be. So, yeah, and then we comboed that together. So, pretty nice finish to that.
A little dicey later, but it ended up working out. I'm back on the Nats today. Corbin Burns will probably get it done, but it's like plus 200. I'm back on the Nats today, too. So
ride the train till it breaks.
Yeah, it's falling apart. Tim, what's going on with you?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I had a pretty good day in DFS yesterday. I was on the Mets and the Rays, so that ended up being a pretty good day for me. The Rays went completely insane, and the Mets got there as pretty good chalk. So it was a good day for me in DFS, and it's always good to do a show with you, Brett.
Yeah, sports betting's been doing somehow. I managed not a lot of DFS in May, but you can still get sports bets in pretty easily. So that's been going good. Looking to roll that over into June. We got a little bit longer show. Since I've been back here, we got a full hour. We going to 105. We might even kick it a little longer. If you guys, FanDuel starts, Justin, you go on rants on this all the time. They start at 135, but DraftKings, I think, did the right thing starting at 105. Maybe you don't have to wait for lineups or anything like that. So we will have the ability to stay around for maybe some of you FanDuel people just a few minutes later. But DraftKings does lock at 105. FanDuel at FanDuel. Which one?
You got it right. DraftKings 105, FanDuel 135.
Yeah, so we'll stick around for a couple FanDuel questions, maybe a little bit later today. I want to jump into weather real quick. I always like to hit on that at the top of the show here. Just pulling it up. There's a lot of wind, but it's basically going across the fields today. Tim, are you adjusting anything for weather out there in the streets today, or are you basically just letting the weather ride?
I am just going to let the weather ride today. I don't think there's really anything to like all that important. Obviously, it's negative hitting weather in Wrigley today, but I really don't have much interest in that game, so that doesn't really move the needle that much for me. And of course, the weather is baked into the projections anyway. So I mean, it's not. I don't think weather is a huge thing today.
How many runs will the Mets score today? Winds blowing at 15 miles per hour out against a pitcher and a bullpen whose ERA is what? Might be triple digits after this game today, Justin. That's probably the best spot. The problem is the Mets are expensive, mostly around. You got a couple choices to make, Alonso or Vlad at first base. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But are you finding it easy to get the Mets into your lineup today?
Yeah, I think it's doable. If you're playing on DraftKings, you probably need a cheaper SP2, which is fine. There is some value, a lot of times on the weekends, you get some guys that are getting, days off and stuff. So we've got some reasonable value tonight. You've got this afternoon, you've got basically a min salary leadoff man for the Royals that's helping out. So, yeah, I mean, I think obviously the Rockies are kind of the breaking the DFS year with how poor they are, and Mets projected for 6 runs. I think they hit 3 homers yesterday. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to ignore them for sure. And I think they're a little bit easier to fit around some value than maybe they were when I first looked at the slate this morning.
Yeah, you can get a couple of them in there. That there's DraftKings. I mean, you can have a full outfield of under 3,000 if you want, 3,100 if you throw in Tauchman over there. But we'll get into all that in a little bit. Let's go. Let's start with pitching. I wanted to bring up SimLabs, but I didn't. It looks like the ownership wasn't quite up there, so SimLabs might not be working at its absolute peak possibly today. So I want to go to pitching. Justin, there is quite a few options today. So are you want to spending up? You said we might need a couple cheap ones. Let's start with Clay Holmes, who is the Roto Grinders' top projected overall point scorer today. He's basically the guy you want to use to start your cash games around, going up against Colorado. I mean, it's the absolute best matchup. Holmes is having a reasonably good season. Not great, but not bad. You got to get Clay Holmes in there as your basic SP1 to me today.
Yeah, I mean, he's the building block for cash games for sure. Just because of, I mean, that Rockies lineup, they have the second highest team strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Their team total is 2.5. Strikeout prop is 6.5 on Holmes today. I mean, if you just stack up the numbers side by side, like Holmes' numbers don't stack up to a Hunter Brown or a Crochet or a deGrom, but the Rockies, I mean, they're just the great equalizer this year. They're just so bad. And, you know, Holmes comes at a bit of a discount, which also helps to fit in those top end bats. I'll probably be underweight on him in tournaments just because the ownership's probably going to be through the roof. And, you know, he just doesn't have the same skill set as some of these other guys, but it's just that opponent factor. So cash games, he's your SP1. I think in tournaments, absolutely fine with a pivot because you've got 6 aces today, right? You've got Hunter Brown, you've got Crochet, you've got deGrom. Bubic has been pitching really well for the Royals. Gausman's been pitching better. So there's a lot of options at the top today. Clay Holmes, I think, is your cash game guy, but I'll be underweight in tournaments for sure, and probably pivot to somebody like Crochet as my top guy.
Yeah, the player pool at pitcher today. Sometimes you want to expand that, but I mean, there's so many. There's probably 7 to 8 guys that I think can have reasonably good performances. That going with a complete one-off, off the wall pitching in tournaments, even in 150 fields, probably not the smartest idea. SP2, Justin, right? You did the article this morning. What are we doing here? You've got Gavin Williams, 7,500. Good, not, Trout's not in the lineup today, so the lineup he's going against is a little bit easier in my opinion. He's projecting pretty well, basically right in line with Hunter Brown, according to Roto Grinders, a fantasy point difference. But at what? $4,000 discount? That's pretty easy to take the discount in there to get the bats you want. Are you paying down for a Gavin Williams, or do you like a Crochet or Brown as your SP2?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to use both of the spend ups. Certainly, if salary cap wasn't a thing, you could use the 2 spend up guys, right? You could pair Holmes with Crochet or something like that. I don't think that's probably the optimal approach in cash games. I think it's, if you don't want Holmes, fine, you could go to Crochet or Brown, but I think Holmes and Williams is the combo. Gives you plenty of salary to spend with your bats. And the Angels now for the year have a higher strikeout rate against right-handed pitching than the Rockies do. It's close, but the Angels have passed them, plus the no Trout thing. Plus Gavin Williams right now is over 6.5 Ks at like minus 135. So, I mean, it's just the only issue with Gavin Williams is the walks. And yes, that can be a problem, but I think the matchup plus the no Trout amplifies that today. And yeah, I mean, in my GPP top combo is Crochet and Gavin Williams. I think you're probably going Holmes and Gavin Williams in cash games, but there's just not a whole lot else to like on the cheap. I mean, Tyon, there's no ceiling there, and he's just been pitching in great matchups. He's faced the Rockies, the Marlins, the I think he's faced the Marlins twice, maybe the White Sox in there. So I'm not going there. I'm certainly not going to Charlie Morton even against the White Sox. There's just not a whole lot else on the cheap today. Maybe Birdsong you can make a case for, but I think Williams is the guy.
Yeah, Tim, I'm going to throw it to you. We're in the cash game streets. You paying for a Hunter Brown? You paying for a Crochet? Or are you going Holmes and Gavin Williams?
Yeah, I think you're supposed to go Holmes and Gavin Williams today, but I certainly wouldn't fault anybody if they wanted to go Holmes and Hunter Brown or Holmes and Garrett Crochet. But the clear SB1 in cash is definitely Clay Holmes. But the thing is, we've got some really, really cheap hitters that I think are in really fantastic spots. So like if you wanted to pay up at SB2, whether it be in cash or GPPs, I would have absolutely no issue with that. They're pretty well clumped together, those four. But I mean, obviously you got pretty amazing savings with Gavin Williams. But the thing is, I don't know if you necessarily like have to take that savings. And so we know that Hunter Brown and Garrett Crochet are way better pitchers than Gavin Williams. So I certainly wouldn't fault anybody if they wanted to pay up for one of those two high price guys in cash. In terms of GPPs, the four that I mentioned are my favorite. If I was looking to spread out a little bit, Bubic would be, I think, my favorite, followed by probably deGrom and then Kevin Gausman. So those are guys that you could potentially kind of spread out your pitching pool with. I've seen some chatter about Charlie Morton at 5,400. I just don't think it's necessary on the slate. Again, I don't think there's like a premium stack that I think that you really absolutely have to have today. So I get that he's 5,400 and I get that it's against the White Sox, but I think that I would rather play some White Sox bats, to be honest with you. So I couldn't do it, but I mean, if you're making
prior to
yeah.
Monday,
Yeah.
Charlie Morton had pitched in 12 games this year and the Orioles had lost them all. And then he beat the Cardinals, which tilted me to no end. But anyway, I mean, he's just been that bad. I know Britt was betting against him like every start for multiple
I've stopped bet. I went away right when he started to have a couple of good outings. I'm against Morton today, but that's because I'm on who am I on? Who's the White Sox pitcher today? Hauser has been pitching pretty well. His velocity's up. So I think Hauser can maybe keep Baltimore in bay a little bit. And that's how I'm attacking Charlie Morton today. So actually, I had the White Sox first half spread. If you were looking for a bet from that, from Scores and Odds today. So Morton was a money printing machine for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just don't think he's really necessary in your player pool today.
Where does it stop? Where does it stop for you? Because I'm on guys. I think you could play a Weathers or a Birdsong. You can't play the guys with you can't play a Fetty. You can't play Kawano, you can't play a Montero. You can't play these guys today because there's so many guys that have strikeout upside. I'm not on Morton. I think I would play a Weathers, a Birdsong, probably not Hauser and DFS. That's more of a sports betting angle for me. Maybe a Taj Bradley, but the guys that just don't have the typical strikeout upside. Because what do we have, Tim? We have 6, 7 starters that look to be in really good spots that are ace level potentials. You're not going to get away with a 15 winning you a GPP at starting pitcher today.
Right. So that's why I'm really not interested in those spend down options. I think I guess Birdsong would be okay in like a large field setting. I don't know. I don't really like you said, I don't really like any of these spend down pitchers. I definitely don't want Bryce Elder. I don't think I want Taj Bradley. So it's really in GPPs. I don't know if I would go below Gavin Williams, to be honest with you. I don't know if there's anybody in terms of salary, maybe a Ryan Weathers, perhaps, but I'm not ecstatic about it.
Yeah, Weathers is probably, if you like my dart throw GPP play, if I was playing like 150, I'd throw him in maybe 10% of the lineup, something like that. Anything else, Justin, for pitching, or do we want to start moving on to maybe some offense here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty well covers it. If we've gotten down to the Ryan Weathers, Charlie Morton, Eric Fetty tier, we're probably through it.
Not Eric Fetty. I don't think I can. I'm on the under Eric.
I was just throwing the bottom of the barrel names out there. Yeah, I'm not on him either.
What's everyone's thoughts on Jacob deGrom? The chat is a little bit concerned that he did not strike anyone out last outing.
Always concerning, but
yeah.
I mean, he's Jacob deGrom. I'm not all too concerned about it. He would be, I mean, Holmes, Crochet, Hunter Brown. You've got Gavin Williams. I might even play Bubic over him today. Maybe even Ranger Suarez. Suarez is back to ace level potential. So he's not really on my radar. More of a tournament play for me. Justin, what was your take in the write-up today?
Cardinals are hot. Can't play him. No, I'm very neutral. I don't have a hot take on him either way. You know, if this was a different slate where we didn't have other aces, you know, he would stand out a little bit more. But when you've got Crochet and Hunter Brown and Clay Holmes in a good matchup, like, I just don't think it's necessary. The ownership will probably be a little bit lower. So if you're building like 50 plus lineups, I think you play him in some, but I don't think there's any path in which he's like a single entry option. He's just not he's not throwing 100-mile-an-hour gas anymore and striking out 35% of the guys. He's still very good, but when you combine that with the concerns of the last start a little bit, plus the matchup being maybe not ideal, the Cardinals aren't a massive strikeout team. I just don't think it's necessary today, other than differentiating in your, multi-entry builds is probably where I would get to some of them.
All right. We'll get to some offense in just a second, but before we do, I need to tell you guys about RotoGrinders Combo Pro. The MLB DFS annual option is $425, but we dropped the price of it to mirror the MLB annual package. You can get more stuff for the same price. Sounds good. You can get a combo of 6-month Pro, get you full access to everything except NASCAR. So that's MLB, what's left of NBA. You can get some golf in there as well. You save about 35% by getting 6 months instead of paying for it monthly. You can sign up for those projections and more. You get access to the SimLabs too. I wouldn't usually have SimLabs up, but it looks like something's up with the ownership on it. So we'll stick with the good old lineup HQ that we use for Justin? Hundreds of years, it seems like a good 10 years.
Since the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah, a good time.
For what it's worth, our ownership on the RotoGrinders projections is up now. I don't know if they've
all right,
run SimLabs yet, but they did just fix the ownership. So if you are a premium subscriber that's been looking for that projected ownership in Lineup HQ, if you refresh on the RotoGrinders projections, it should be available now. But SimLabs, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that yet.
All right, Tim, who is the guest on your shoulder here today?
His name is Roscoe.
So we got Roscoe. Roscoe's ready to talk offense, Tim. Where are we looking across the league for some offense today? We got the Mets against the Rockies. You do have to go a little bit cheaper at pitching to get some of that, but that's the obvious one. Where would we be going other than the Mets today?
Yeah, other than the Mets today, I mean, clearly it is the Mets today. They are the top stack, I think, across the board. But yeah, anyone, if you're looking to fade the Mets today, I think it's the Red Sox. I was kind of surprised. I thought their implied team total was a little bit low. I would love to get exposure to Bryce Elder. I love a lot of those the top half of that lineup. Abraham Toro, I think, is a really solid salary saver, and I don't think he's going to be that highly owned. So I do like that Red Sox stack a ton. I know that I'm going to get some pushback in the chat, but I think we can go back to the Orioles. I mean, I know that if you've been stacking them all year, your bankroll is hurting, but that's just the way it is. So I mean, I know Hauser's been pitching well, but the Orioles do have a 5+ implied team total. So it's, there was kind of a discussion in chat yesterday about if we can play certain Orioles hitters, and I think it's all dependent on ownership, right? So as people continue to lose with them, I would imagine that their ownership is going to start coming down. So I really wouldn't fault anybody if they wanted to play Orioles in large field GPPs or even like 3 max single entry type stuff. I like them quite a bit today. I like the Royals against Montero. We've got John Rave batting leadoff at 2,100. I think he's a really amazing value. If Bobby Witt's really going to be under 10% owned, I really like that today as well. So I really like the top half of that Royals lineup. I think today, like what I would be doing if I was building out a player pool, I'd be condensing my ownership with pitchers and then really spreading out with bats. I think that would be like my kind of macro analysis on building out teams. We did get a comment in chat about the Blue Jays. I really like Blue Jays, especially maybe not as a stack, but especially for like some power one-offs against JP Sears. Again, another team with a 5+ implied team total. I don't think that they're going to have a ton of ownership either. So like if you wanted to one-off like a Vlad, one-off a Bo Bichette, I think that's a really, really solid play. So I don't mind getting to some Blue Jays, especially as like minis or one-offs.
Justin, you want to expand on anything? I think Tim hit all of the main teams. Is there maybe a sleeper offense or a couple of the lower team totals that you think could outperform?
I wrote up Boston as my sleeper offense, so I totally agree with what you guys said there with their team total only being 4 runs. That surprises me. That game basically
right now, by the way,
basically being a pick'em with Crochet and Elder surprises me. Seems like a trap, but it is what it is. I guess we all like Boston. It makes sense. I was on Schwellenbach against him yesterday. That worked out. But why flip the switch? Elder he's got a sub 15% strikeout rate in his career against lefties. You got those dangerous lefties at the top of the order, and he doesn't have the swing and miss stuff that Schwellenbach does. So Boston is my sneaky team. Toronto is my other top team besides the Mets. Toronto scored, I believe, 31 runs in the first 3 games of that series, a 4-game series with the A's. So they're finally waking up with the bats. They should send a telegram to the Orioles maybe for some help. But Toronto's been hot, so I like them. And maybe the only other team that I don't know, either Tim just mentioned in passing or didn't mention a whole lot, would be the Phillies. Obviously not as much ceiling probably without Harper in there, but basically all their bats single digits in terms of percentage ownership projection. Quintana's just coming off the injured list. He's not exactly a hard throwing lefty. So, I mean, Schwarber, even lefty, he has great metrics against lefties this year. And outside of Schwarber and Turner, the stack is fairly affordable. You've got some value guys in there too. Weston Wilson is in the outfield after pitching 2 innings yesterday, which is a little wild, but I do like the Phillies a good bit too.
All right. Let's get to position by position there. I do want to remind you guys, if you can click the like button on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate it. I don't know if TJ's back there with any Spidey bombs hiding. TJ, can you confirm? Would you pop in here if we get to a certain amount of likes here?
They've already been, first one's already scrolling. We had it up on the screen. Second one's coming at 75 likes. First one's Bo Bichette at plus 470 on FanDuel.
All right, keep looking at those likes and feel free to pop in here anytime to give your 2 cents, TJ. No problem at all. All right, catcher. Tim, I'll start with you in the cash game streets today. We'll stick to mainly DraftKings. Again, FanDuel locks a little later today. Connor Wong, we mentioned the Red Sox. Oh, if you wanted to bet the Red Sox team total, it's 4.5 on FanDuel at plus 112. I went and hit that as we were talking about that one. So we've got Wong at 2,200. Really hard to. There's really no catcher in a great spot today. So why not just spend all the way down? The other guy would be probably Kirk at 3,500. But if you play Holmes and maybe Gavin Williams, and you play Wong, I mean, you get the lay of the land at basically every other position that you want in terms of bats today if you don't want to pay for another premium pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can play Connor Wong in cash games today. I think I'm going to be playing Alejandro Kirk at 3,500, but I certainly don't want to. It's not a bad play to just punt it off. I don't mind perhaps even like a Bo Naylor, maybe just in like single entry or large field GPPs. I know Sal Perez is kind of, not been great, but I think I do kind of have an interest in that stack. So I cannot just say, I wouldn't mind if people wanted to get to some Perez today.
Justin, anything you're looking at maybe for more tournaments or cash games? You got a preference spending all the way down, going up to Kirk to spend a little bit more? Kirk should, in theory, probably be the highest priced catcher on the slate today. So getting him at 3,500 on DraftKings is a good discount.
Yeah, there's just not a lot to like if you go all the way up, because you've got, Herrera has been hitting real well for the Cardinals, but he's facing deGrom. William Contreras, I don't mind, but not a priority against Suarez by any means. Agustin Ramirez is hitting cleanup for Miami and has probably been their best hitter over the last few weeks, so he would be the guy, I guess, if you're looking to spend over 4K, but I just don't think it's necessary. Tough matchups for Ohapi, Sean Murphy, Stevenson's got the wind at Wrigley. So Ramirez is really the only guy above 4K that I feel like I would play. But it's definitely a save position. Kirk, Perez, don't mind the Houston guys, but and Wong for that salary is 2,200 is a nice value if you're just looking to save as much as you can to spend at the other spots.
And hopefully get like 5 fantasy points
Double
today.
in a run scored, you're good to go.
SimLabs is up for you guys that maybe use that, or if you want to take a look at it. So we'll probably use that for the rest of the show here going forward. A little bit easier to understand than Lineup HQ. First base, Tim. All right, decisions of all decisions on DraftKings today. If you're spending, you've got Vlad and you've got Pete Alonso at the exact same price today. Who would you choose between those two today? And then, or are you going cheaper? I know you mentioned down here trying to get Toro at 2,600. He's only first base eligible on DraftKings. What's your lay of the land here? I am going personally with Pete Alonso over Vlad. It's just, I think the projections have Vlad. I'm overriding them personally and playing Alonso. Oh, you're on mute, Tim.
Sorry about that. Do not play Toro in cash games. He's just the only in stacks guy if you're stacking the Red Sox. But yeah, I'm totally playing Pete Alonso over Vlad in cash games. I don't mind that take at all. Projections do disagree. Projections do love Vlad today. I would consider playing both of them on FanDuel. Vlad's only 3,400 on FanDuel, so I don't mind playing both of them. Ryan O'Hearn is definitely a strong value on both sites. Vinny P, like if you're playing like a couple of Brown Holmes lineups or like Brown Crochet lineups, I think Vinny P is a really good. That whole Royal stack I think is really, really cheap today, so I do like him quite a bit. Kyle Manzardo at 4K, I don't mind him. But yeah, it's Alonso for me over Vlad at least for cash games.
Justin in the tournaments on SimLabs, Toro, Manzardo, your boy Burleson coming in here.
Don't play him.
Don't play him. So like Toro's ownership, right? I get where Tim's coming from because the Vlad and Alonso ownership are going to be so high that Toro, even though he's cheap, I think it's because we have so many cheap outfielders today. He's just not hitting a lot of lineups today. So the optimal lineups do seem to like Toro quite a bit today. Who would you choose between Alonso or Vlad if you're playing maybe limited tournaments? And then what do you think of maybe these guys popping on the optimal here?
Yeah, I think I like Toronto on the whole a little bit better for tournaments. I think one of the angles you could take is to play a Mets stack with Vlad at first base, or play a Toronto stack with Alonso at first base and hope that the team that you pick goes off, but not that specific player. And then maybe the other first baseman does better. That's a interesting way to kind of think about a GPP roster build. So if you play, for example, you play the Mets stack, but then you play Vlad at first base, then as long as Alonso doesn't do most of the damage for the Mets, and then if Vladdy outscores Alonso, then you're going to be ahead of most of the other Mets stacks. So I prefer Vladdy in tournaments. I do agree that I think I'd probably stick with Alonso in cash games. And Toro, is just kind of, I think his ownership will end up being a little bit higher. But you got to think about it. At DraftKings, there's a whole lot of multi-position eligible guys. So Ryan O'Hearn, you're playing him in the outfield. If you're looking for another cheap guy like a Vargas or a Kobe Mayo or something, you can play either of those guys at third, or a Wilmer Flores. So at first, you're basically down to Vlad, Vinny P, Pete Alonso, and Toro. It would be a pretty small pool for me at first base. Like I'd be totally fine building a pool of just those 4 guys and playing all of them at, some combination of 20 to 30% in my GPP builds. And it certainly helps that, those are a few of my favorite stacks as well.
Okay, let's go to second base, maybe even for both sites today. You've got Jackson Holiday, 4,200. What did he? I think he hit a home run. Yeah, he hit a home run yesterday. One of the few Baltimore bats. It seems like he's doing okay on a reasonable basis here. His price is good for today, Tim. It's not a position you're really looking to spend up on. Brendan Donovan, Low, Terrain. Like, none of these guys are in great spots today. Holiday might be just the straight up raw points projection winner anyway, and he's reasonably priced. Looks like the guy you want to use today.
Yeah, it's definitely Holiday at second base today. I don't think it's really that much of a decision on either site. He's way too cheap across the board. Definitely way too cheap on FanDuel at under 3,000. So he's definitely the guy today. I don't mind maybe playing a little bit of Jose Altuve in GBPs. I don't mind some Angel Martinez at 3,200, Jorge Mateo at 2,700. I think those are all pretty decent values as well. I don't mind Christian Campbell in that Red Sox stack, but I think it's a pretty bad position today. It often has been this season, and today's really no different.
What do you see, Justin, at the second base position today? Again, not greatest. I like even lefty Batty reasonably if you're looking for a Met stack today. Doesn't look like a lot of people will own him today. Looks like the optimals, Kristen Campbell towards the bottom of the White Sox lineup. Michael Massey, Jose Altuve. These are the guys popping on SimLabs.
Yeah, and it's largely because the position just kind of stinks today. I don't love it. If you're using any multi-position eligible player, play them here. Holiday is clearly the guy for me. It was his first, I believe his first career leadoff homer yesterday. He's still 2,900, I think, on FanDuel. Somebody's got to get them the memo to bump his price a little bit. DraftKings has kind of slowly been bumping him up. But he's the guy for me. Angel Martinez was the popular value yesterday and went 0 for 5 against Kyle Hendricks. Fitzgerald, I don't really have a hot take on him. He's fine, but I'd rather just play Holiday. Ernie Clement does have really good splits this year against lefties. It's a small sample, but I like the Toronto stack. He's hitting 6th. He would be a punt if you want to save at the second base spot.
All right, let's go to third. I really want Devers, but he's gotten to be a little bit too expensive. You can get to him. I think he's a little easier on probably DraftKings today because there's a plethora of cheap outfielders. If you use one or maybe two, you could probably get to Devers rather easily today. What are you doing, Tim? I think the projections like Matt Chapman with the splits over Weathers, but Weathers has been reasonably good. He's like the mid-tier third baseman probably. Are you paying up? You paying in the middle, or you got someone else in mind?
I would like to play Rafael Devers here. I'm really considering playing him on my cash game team. I really like that. I really like the Red Sox stack today. I think Devers has really good splits, so it's probably Devers for me. I think Urias for the Orioles at 3,100, batting second, is okay as like a cheaper option. Vargas at 3,200 against Morton. I think he's a decent option as well. Yeah, you're right though that projections do like Matt Chapman today. I think he's completely fine. I think there's quite a few different ways you can play this position today. I'm thinking that I'm going to be playing Devers though. I just really like this spot for Boston. So so I think I'm going to go in Devers today.
Yeah, I've been messing around. I'm trying to get Devers in on my other screen here, and I'm like everything I do is like $100 short. So I'm trying my best to get him in here. I'm going to figure out a way by the time the show ends. Devers also looks like one of the best tournament plays by a wide margin. If he's only coming in at 10% owned, the projection SimLabs really likes him in tournaments today. I think all three of us are on Boston. I bet the Boston team total. Remember, no one wanted to play Devers for the first month of the season, and now he's one of the better bats in baseball. He's really turned it around. So he's another one, Justin. I leave for the month. Rafael Devers goes bananas. How are you handling him, especially with SimLabs, really having him pop as basically the best play of the day?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I like him a lot. So probably just going to roll with that. I don't think the ownership's going to get too out of control. I mean, if you're looking to go cheap, I don't know if Alec Boehm's ever going to hit again, but I do like the Phillies stack. I don't know if Mark Vientos is ever going to hit again. One of those guys, somebody's got to break out at some point. Vientos is hitting 7th today, so maybe he doesn't get the ownership as some of the other Mets. Michael Garcia, I don't mind. Like, yeah, I like taking some chances here on some of those lower owned darts and GPP builds. But yeah, if I'm spending, it's definitely Devers.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. Anyone else you're looking at for a tournament perspective? The Mets, of course, too. Both of them look like they're positive on SimLabs as plays today.
I think, Mayer for the Red Sox would be the totally wild pivot away from Devers, because on DraftKings, he's only third base eligible. So you can't play Devers and Mayer in the same lineup. And I mean, this kid's a top prospect. Hasn't done much at the MLB level yet, but he's still hitting 5th. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that's crazy in a Boston stack if you're looking to do something a little different.
Yeah, just get a little different. I like that quite a bit. All right, let's go to shortstop. If you guys want to start putting questions maybe into YouTube or into the Discord in the live stream chat, we'll get to those as the show comes to an end here. And then don't forget too, we will maybe stay on a little longer if the questions run thin, spend a few minutes at 105 talking a little bit more about the FanDuel slate. But shortstop, Tim, this is, you got to spend reasonably. I mean, you got Gunnar Henderson as basically the lowest price guy you want to use today. There's too many good shortstops to pass on. You've got Bobby Witt, you've got Francisco Lindor, you've got Trey Turner against a lefty. Seager against Fedde coming in at 4,900, I think looks like a pretty good tournament play to me. Just a position you want to spend with Gunnar Henderson probably being the cheapest guy you're going to use today. Maybe a Clement down here too.
Yeah, and I was going to say Bo Bichette, but you're generally correct on that though. This is definitely a spend up position. It has been all season. Today is no different. Cannot fault you if you want to go Gunnar, Bobby Witt, Lindor. I don't even mind Corey Seager. Love all these guys in GPPs, in cash games. They're all viable. Nobody's going to be playing Ellie De La Cruz today. So, I mean, he's going to be, it's not necessarily good hitting weather, but Ellie can get there in various different ways. So he's a great one-off in large field GPPs. But yeah, this is not a spend down position. I have no interest in saving here. I think Bobby Witt's probably my favorite if I had to choose out of those top, 5 or 6 names, but any of them are viable.
I'd probably take Lindor today. Just this Rockies wind blowing out. Rockies horrible starter, horrible bullpen. I might take Lindor in that one. Witt's got a good matchup too. I always hate taking him in KC, man. It's just so hard for offense. They're just a very pitiful offense in Kansas City outside of Bobby Witt. So I might take. I think I'm on Lindor over Witt today. 2 home run day for Bobby Witt. That's usually what happens when you make a stand like that. Justin, what are you doing here? If you have a couple of the top names here, maybe break the tie between me and Tim. And then what would you be doing to get different today? Would you even really mess around with anybody cheap? It looks like, Trevor Story. It just looks like Boston's going to be under-owned according to SimLabs. Maybe I don't know. Is the ownership not high enough, or are we wrong on liking Boston, Justin?
That's got to be it. It's got to be a trap, I think. But if we're all on the same page, I'd like to think at least one of us is sharp. So we'll take your pick on who you want to believe is the sharp one today. But we're all on them, so somebody's got to be right. But I don't know. As far as breaking the tie, I'll just say that today's the day Gunnar gets going, and then he's the guy. Or I don't have a strong take between Witt and Lindor. I'd probably take Witt, but I do like Trey Turner as a pivot a good bit in tournaments as well. Again, I think I'm higher on the Phillies a little bit more than most. Not on Ellie today with that wind in Chicago. Not really on Corey Seager until Texas kind of gets going, which hasn't happened pretty much all year. Don't mind the Trevor Story call as a GPP punt, but Probably a position that, I mean, we've had cheap values at basically every other spot so far. So shortstop, pretty tough to justify as a position to save compared to the other spots.
Yeah, talking about cheap value, Tim. Let's go to the outfield because this outfield is really going to shape your team on DraftKings today because there is a plethora of 3,100 and below names. I'm going to throw some of these out for the people here who might be searching. So you got Tauchman. I think he's hitting second against Charlie Morton. You've got Starling Marte hitting second against Colorado. We've mentioned. Where is he from? Kansas City. John Rave.
John Rave.
Yeah, he's going to be probably one of the highest owned hitters on the slate on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He's coming in at 2,100. You can mix in. There's a couple other guys in here too, but how many is too many of those guys, Tim? You're probably playing Rave. How are you finding your lineups looking? If you're doing Williams and Holmes, you probably have two reasonable spends in the outfield alongside Rave.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really nailed that perfectly. I would not spend more than, pick more than one of these guys in cash games. So it's really just John Rave for me in cash, and then you can get up to higher priced outfielders. It's not really that necessary to have that value, in my opinion. So I think that you can spend up for guys like Kyle Schwarber. Wyatt Langford, I love. Juan Soto is obviously in a fantastic spot, even left on left. Ronald Acuna, he's probably not a cash game option today against Crochet, but still, I think he's completely fine for GPPs. He does have the top outfielder projection today in the bat at least, so he's obviously a great play. I really like George Springer today. If you need to, get below that 5K threshold, I think at 4,300, he's a really nice play. Again, you can play Ryan O'Hearn. He's first base outfield eligible, so I think he's okay as well. Starling Marte at 3,000. I think he's fine in those Met stacks. I don't necessarily want to play him in cash games. And then same thing with like Jorge Mateo at 2,700. I think he's not a cash game play, but great in the Orioles stack.
It looks like as far as ownership, Justin, it looks like we've got Soto, Marte at 3,000. You've got Rave coming in here as well. Not a lot, Duran. I'm on him. I'm on Springer. Soto's good too at 5,400. What would you rather do? Let's pretend there's no price difference. You want Soto or you want Duran today?
I mean, the power just hasn't been there with Soto. Like, I'm fine with him. I mean, the Mets are projected for a bunch of runs, obviously, but I can leave Soto. I don't think you got to play Soto if he's going to be the highest owned outfielder on the board. So I guess Duran, if I'm choosing between them.
Would you rather Duran or Abreu straight up on DraftKings if you have to pick between one of them and you get a $700 price difference taking Abreu over Duran?
I mean, I'd take Duran straight up. If you can do something with the extra 700, totally fine. I like O'Hearn. He's at the same price. And all those cheap guys. I mean, it's wild to see if you got, right? So we've got Rave is 2,100 leading off. Marte is 3K. Daz Cameron is hitting 5th for Milwaukee. He's 2K. Ozuna is hitting 5th for Texas. He's 2,200. Tauchman is 3,100 for the White Sox. Dylan Carlson is 2,400 for the Orioles. Michael Massey is 2,400 for the Royals. I mean, all these, that's like 8 guys. And I didn't even mention all of them. I just mentioned the guys that either you're familiar with or are hitting in good lineup spots that are all 3K basically or less. And there's more. I mean, there's so many cheap guys here that I think the 4K range is going to get lost in the shuffle because, again, I already mentioned, Schwarber, really good splits against lefties this year. I like him a lot. But everyone's going to go for all these cheapies plus the spend ups that, nobody's going to be playing, say the likes of Springer is probably going to be lower owned than we would have expected at the beginning of the day. So those 4K-ish options, I think, are really interesting for tournaments.
Yeah, it's basically the 4K is like a dead zone outside of Springer and Abreu basically on DraftKings today. Those are the only guys I was really finding into my lineups today. What do you think of some of these guys? I want to talk rave in tournaments because people are going to him, and you just had a nice spiel on how many sub 3,100 guys there are today. I definitely would not use rave as a one-off on a tournament today. Does that make sense to you?
Definitely don't use rave as a one-off in GPP.
Yeah. So if
no,
that's just based off that list Justin said, and I know this as well. You can see SimLabs even is telling you that too. Of all the cheap guys, they have Carlson in here as well. Do you see Carlson getting almost as much ownership as Rave today? I don't know.
I watched Dylan Carlson for years in St. Louis. He was supposed to be the next big thing for the longest time. And what I discovered from his years in St. Louis is he cannot hit right-handed pitching. He just can't. He should give up switch hitting. Like Dylan Carlson, I pulled up his stats on FanGraphs. So his career batting average is 220. His career weighted on base is 289 against right-handed pitching. He's got above average splits against lefties. Dude can't hit right-handed pitching. Yeah, Hauser's a right-handed pitcher.
Stay on the right side.
Yeah, don't play Carlson against a righty. That's always my theory.
All right, yeah. So just avoid those really maybe Carlson and I think Rave specifically is going to be the highest owned cheap play. So for tournaments, do not use them as one-offs. SimLabs would certainly agree with that one. Do you have a favorite, Justin, for tournaments of any of those cheapies? If the SimLabs is telling us not Rave, not Carlson, not Tauchman, is there someone else you might want to plug in there? It looks like all the cheapies are basically a no-go on SimLabs today.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Tauchman a good bit. I like the White Sox a decent amount for the White Sox. But, I mean, outside of those guys, like if I had to pick a punt, it would probably be Osuna for the Rangers at 2,200. He's hitting behind Seager, Wyatt Langford, and Josh Young. So, again, in theory, if Texas can ever get their bats going, Eric Fetty's very hittable. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out. So, yeah, Osuna for Texas would be my favorite. Like, definitely going to be lower owned of the bunch.
All right. And it looks like TJ Spidey bombs are up there. TJ, how far are we away from number 4? You got one coming up here. How many likes we had on the YouTubes?
15 more likes for number 4.
All right, let's get a couple more likes. We'll get Spidey Bomb number 4. TJ, how do you want to do this? You want me to do the questions? You want to pop in here and ask some questions, and we can all sort of go on? What do you want to do here, man?
No, you got it.
All right, so I'll go in here. TJ is just in the background. So let's see. What do we got here? I'm going to scroll up on YouTube. We'll go to the live stream chat in just a few minutes. I got to pull that up here. I saw someone was asking Anthony in YouTube a little while ago, was asking, how do you guys feel about the Blue Jay stack? And your pitchers are Hunter Brown and Suarez. I think we would probably, Suarez is going to give you enough of a change up in tournaments, and he's been pitching really well. I think that's fine to go with Blue Jays, even if the Blue Jays are going to be reasonably owned today. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, I think that's the correct way to play Toronto today. You're getting off a ton of aggregate ownership by going Suarez. I think the Blue Jays are in a really good spot, so I don't mind that play at all.
All right, let's see here. Gonna get a couple more YouTube questions. Jays and Guardians, White Sox for the win. If Morton, what do we think Morton's ownership comes in today? He is super cheap. You don't have the Dodgers, you don't have the Yankees, so it's really hard to spend all the sell. You're not playing Kyle Tucker and Pete Crow Armstrong in the win today, right? So we don't need that salary. I think some days he would be higher owned, and a White Sox stack would make sense. But you got to have a full 150 set to be putting the White Sox in today, to me, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be full stacking Chicago. That does not mean that I like Charlie Morton. He's projecting right now at around 5% at 5,400. So it's not really a spot that I want to attack.
Cody, the same question, sort of the same question we talked about earlier today. So I asked both of you guys Lindor or Witt, and it seemed like I was the one on the bad end of the 2-1. Let's change that up to Lindor or Soto, probably in the utility spot on FanDuel today. This coming from somebody in the YouTube chat. Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd take Lindor over Soto if I was choosing between the two.
Me too.
I agree.
All right, we're all going to take that today. Achilles, DraftKings Cash, Wong and Devers, which I think is a really good play, or Sale, Pale, and Chapman. I think I would definitely play Wong and Devers. I think getting Kirk and Devers in there is probably the way to go, though, Tim, if you can figure that out, right? You can make that work pretty easily on DraftKings.
Yeah, with that 2v2, I definitely go that Boston side. But yeah, I kind of like getting to Kirk today.
Yeah, I think that's where I would go, Achilles, if you were looking for that. Which lowest price pitcher going to be the biggest troll today? So basically, I think he's asking of which lowest owned pitcher is going to do good. Am I reading this correctly?
I believe that's how I took it.
All right. So if you had to pick one today, the guys I would be looking at to play cheap on DraftKings would probably be Weathers at 7,400. He's a nice pivot off of Gavin Williams, right? You're going to get a tenth of the ownership of Weathers to Gavin Williams, and you're not going to, he's going to outperform 4 out of 10 times to Gavin Williams. So I think that's a positive expectation move. Maybe Hauser is probably where I would draw the line. His velocity's up compared to last year. Baltimore's been underperforming. Baltimore's going to come around at some point, and Hauser's not good, but the velocity uptick for him is nice to see. And then it was against the Mets and the Mariners. He basically completely shut them out. I think Hauser's a very interesting tournament play if you're looking deep today. Justin, you got anyone else there? I'm not going to do more even against the White Sox.
Yeah, I think Birdsong would be in my pool if I was building a bunch of lines. He's not as cheap, but he's the mid-range guy that right now we have at 3% ownership, and he's facing the Marlins. So my fandom hopes it's Eric Fetty, but I'm not going to put my dollars on that.
I'm on the under Eric Fetty strikeouts. I saw he was up on Scores and Odds today. Got that one. Going to go over to the Discord. I see Bates. This is an interesting one. DraftKings is going to lock in a few minutes. Again, if you're playing more FanDuel, we'll stick around for a couple extra minutes after 105 and talk that. But DraftKings Cash, Gavin Williams or Weathers. And Tim, this one's not even close. It's Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams and Clay Holmes is probably going to be the chalk combo on DraftKings today. And other than that, it's probably going to be Holmes with Hunter Brown. You're probably playing Holmes. And I was on the Brown-Holmes combo. But, man, the bats look so much better if you get down to Gavin Williams. I've switched to that person.
Yeah, you're definitely not playing Ryan Weathers in cash games. So
Yeah,
that's a really bad idea.
Has anyone heard of a scratch in the Toronto game? The line shifted in Toronto's favor. He's trying to figure out why. So I didn't write it up on Scores and Odds, but I bet Toronto earlier in the day. I don't think I did that. But does anyone? I don't think nothing's come out on that one. I do like Toronto. The run line looks pretty juicy to me. Can't write everything up on Scores.
Yes, we found out who the sharp guy was.
Yeah.
Brett's out here moving lines.
Brett, you're out moving lines, Brett? Is that what you're doing now?
I'm doing that on a place where the lines don't move unless someone else wants to pick against me. So that's where you get the best move.
I don't see anything, Brett.
I'm not seeing any scratches for Toronto.
Yeah, so
it's all you, Brett.
No, it's other smart people betting the Blue Jays. So I would play the Blue Jays run line. That's how I did it today. I think that's a very good play. Sears, I think, is in a lot of trouble against that right-handed Blue Jays lineup today. Let's see. Find another one. This was earlier. Schneider and Soto or Springer and Schneemann on FanDuel. Anyone have a thought? I'd probably. Schneemann's just not really on my FanDuel radar today.
Yeah, I agree. He's not really on my radar either.
All right. We're just about at DraftKings lock. Let's see. Philly or Milwaukee? You playing Milwaukee runs or you playing Philadelphia bounce back today, Justin?
Yeah, boy. The Brewers 17 runs yesterday. They've won 6 in a row, so they're pretty hot right now. But with Quintana just coming off the injured list, the Suarez has been pitching pretty well for the Phillies. They need some length out of him yesterday because Luzardo was bad. So, yeah, I like the Phillies today.
Mateo wants to know Abreu, Springer, or Ramos for DraftKings cash. So I would do Abreu he's someone I think is close to a must play on DraftKings at 4,400. I think Springer is pretty close behind him. Those are basically the only $4,000-ish bats that are really on my radar. So it's definitely those two. And I would put Abreu over Springer today. Does anyone else have that's something maybe people are tossing around?
I'm putting Springer over Abreu, but I don't think it's ridiculous to go the other way.
Break the tie, Justin.
In a Boston stack, I like Abreu a lot, but if it's just individual bats, I think Springer is probably the play.
All right, I say both because that's what my line.
Yeah, that's fine too.
is currently. Let's see, a couple more. Jose Ramirez and Jesus Sanchez or Isaac Paredes and Langford. That's definitely Paredes and Langford for me, right?
I'm going J-Ram.
I'm not really on the Guardians today. Kochanowicz gets a lot of ground balls. Frankly, I didn't love either of those combos. I mean, I don't have a strong take, but we didn't touch on the Guardians a whole lot. Their team total is actually a little bit higher than I would have expected, but it is what it is.
I don't like the Guardians as a whole, but I don't mind J-Ram.
He's always fine.
I do have the Guardians run line today, so I can't turn scores and odds into my own personal website, but I did bet the Guardians as well today. All right, so that's basically a lot of DraftKings talk. What I want to do here is if any of you are playing on FanDuel, we're going to talk FanDuel for a few minutes. FanDuel specific questions we will ask. We will stick around. Do you guys have anywhere to go, Justin or Tim? Tim looks pretty comfortable right there. Justin,
I'm good with whatever.
You gotta stick around for a few more minutes, just because FanDuel locks a little bit later. We'll answer FanDuel questions until they sort of run out from the chat here. That sounds good to me. TJ's probably like, damn it, Britt, I gotta go somewhere. But sorry, TJ, you're not on right now. You're just in the background. Top FanDuel pitchers. Justin, give the people a breakdown who maybe weren't here at the start on what we're doing on FanDuel.
Yeah, so it's not. Some days, you can find a lot of differences between the sites. Today, it's really not. It's Hunter Brown's the most expensive on both sites. Garrett Crochet is the second most expensive on both sites. Clay Holmes is a little bit of a discount on both sites. Gavin Williams is even more of a discount on both sites. So the only difference, obviously, being on FanDuel, you're only playing one pitcher. I think the optimal is still probably Holmes for cash games. I still like Crochet and GPPs. I still like Gavin Williams. You'll be able to get a little bit lower ownership because you're only playing one pitcher over there. But there's not a whole lot of stark differences on the sites, with the only caveat being obviously on FanDuel with the later lock time, you do not have Jacob deGrom as an option.
Yeah, Tim, you're not really messing around on FanDuel today. We're talking about Weathers and Birdsong and a couple other guys. There's way too many guys that can hit big scores on FanDuel today. I would not play anyone other than basically what's listed here in terms of ownership. Holmes, Crochet, Gausman, Brown, Williams, Suarez, and Bubic. Bubic is probably the lowest in ownership, and he's projected at 4% owned. I mean, he's been great. He could easily top the slate out today. So he's just expensive, and no one's going to play him over Brown or Crochet or something like that. No need to really mess around with a subpar pitcher on FanDuel today.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely not necessary to spread out very much in a 150 build on FanDuel. Personally, if I was building 150 teams, I'd only have 5 pitchers in my player pool: Holmes, Brown, Williams, Crochet, and Bubic. That's it. You could, I guess, conceivably get to Gausman or Suarez, but really, I don't love them today on FanDuel. There were 2 questions that I wanted to address that I saw in the YouTube chat. One is, what is your favorite single entry pitcher on FanDuel? And that would be Garrett Crochet for me at 10-6. And then your favorite cash game pitcher on FanDuel, I think that's pretty easy today. It would be Clay Holmes for me. But you could definitely go Gavin Williams. And if you found a lot of cheap bats that you like, I wouldn't fault anybody if they played Hunter Brown.
Were there any big pricing discrepancies, Justin?
Real quick, Miguel Garcia for the Royals has been scratched.
All right, so that's not.
Yeah, no, there's no big price differences really at all on FanDuel.
Yeah, nothing in the bats. You're probably Rave 2,200 is that? He made my cash FanDuel team today, Tim. It basically opens up quite a bit and allows you to get some of the other bets that you might want today. I know he was popular on DraftKings. Do you think you should be using him on FanDuel as well?
Yeah, you definitely can, but I mean, I'm looking at a lot of bad optimals right now, and he's not appearing because the bat really wants you to play Gavin Williams. But if you're not playing Gavin Williams, then John Rave is definitely a very, very solid play. But I don't think he's absolutely necessary. Now the updated Royals lineup, Rave is not leading off.
Well, what the heck? They just removed a guy. Why would they?
Oh, they put India back in there. Oh, that's horrible.
India's leading off.
All right, so Rave is hitting six. So what are we?
I don't think that changes a ton.
It doesn't, but it's just so strange. Why India sucks? Why did they have this fascination with him?
A side note: India's only game with a home run. I played like a $500 DraftKings head-to-head, and he had India in that game. He had no interest in playing, and I lost that one. I just couldn't believe that happened in the one game all season long. He has a home run. Absolutely ridiculous.
Look at the bottom half of that lineup. That lineup stinks.
Yeah. So. Let's talk about this. He's 2,200 on, Rave. Would you switch him out for any of the other cheap bats if it was like it's just the problem is he's so cheap on DraftKings? Would you go to Osuna? Is that any different?
I'm fine with leaving him. I don't think.
You can't do that anyway. That game started.
Right. And that game started, correct? Yes. No, I'd probably leave it. I mean, if you've got a few extra $100 on FanDuel and it makes a difference to you, then you can pivot to Marte. But doesn't change a whole lot for me.
Yeah, why don't you just put India at 6? You can put India at 9.
When India's in there, he must lead off, apparently, is the rule.
I don't know. It must be in his contract somewhere. I don't think I'm going to blow up my whole DraftKings lineup.
I wouldn't.
To switch Rave out. And I don't think I'm going to do that on FanDuel either. It's just everything else fits so good. How much is Marte on? Marte's what, 2,600?
He's 26 on FanDuel. I think he's 3K on DraftKings.
Yeah, so let me give you. So would you do Rave and let's say a Bobby Witt-ish type player, a 39, a 38 to $4,200 player? Or would you go to like a Marte and 35 something player? I'm looking at the utility, and it's kind of like a Springer, Marte and Springer, or Rave and Bobby Witt.
I think I'd still stay with Bob.
I don't have a strong take. That example was maybe a little extreme because it's got 2 Royals in it, but
yeah,
I mean it's that the point is I still don't think there's a big difference overall projection wise between those combos.
That was just like the quickest thing I could come up with on the fly. That was sort of like a reasonable swap at the outfield. I don't know. I guess once we get off, I'm going to spend a minute or two trying to think something like that. But, decide what you want to do with Rave. He's now hitting 6th. I think that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining in. Thanks to TJ for producing. Hit the like button on your way out. For Cards and Tim, I'm Britt. We out, you.